Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
I love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole. There are a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
Next shot, bang.
Oh, appreciate your collective patience waiting on episode 484 of the Anik and Florian podcast. It is Wednesday, May 1st, 2024. Ken Flo's back in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am on the ground in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Ken Flo tells me it's Rio de Janeiro. But it's good to see you, my man. A new stripe on the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Now the 5th degree BJJ black belt, Kenny Florian. What's up, my man?
Oi, Jonathan. Tudo bem, cara? Como você tá?
Macarao. I just saw Macarao and Everton Oliveira. We ready to...
Yeah, I love it, man. It's great to see your face. I'm glad you're in Rio, safe. And yeah, man, got another stripe on the black belt. Just means I'm getting old. And but it was great to reconnect with some old black belts that have been around that were there to celebrate. And of course, my instructor, Roberto Maia. And yeah, man, excited for UFC 301.
So before we get into today's show, and we will, by the way, talk to Alex Perez here coming up in about a half an hour after his huge win in the main event at UFC Fight Night at the Apex last weekend. Ray Longo is going to join us, Brian Petrie, with full predictions for UFC 301. But a few things to get to before we get into that. So you're home right now. You were in Boston, though, to get that 5th degree stripe there. So, and then you're going, what, to LA for some appearances this weekend? What's going on?
Yeah, doing some seminars, man. Have a seminar on Sunday, right after our podcast, and then I have a couple more seminars the weekend after that. So I'll be at Uprise MMA in LA, and then I have, let's see, where am I going? I'm going to the Coop, and then I'll also be at Legacy Martial Arts in Burbank as well. So got a few of them lined up.
All right, check out at Kenny Florian, his social channels for the details on those appearances on the West Coast. And Kenny did mention, by the way, we are doing a live UFC 301 recap on this very channel on Sunday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. It'll be at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. So we'll have like a 90-minute UFC 301 recap for you guys the morning after UFC 301. I'll be doing it right here in my hotel room, right on the beach, and I will certainly be underslept, but wanted to get you guys a recap out before I hit the metal tube late Sunday night after UFC 301. All right, well, today's show is dedicated to the memory of Francis Ngannou's late son, Kobe. And if you don't know the news, since we were last on the air, Francis Ngannou lost his son at 15 months of age. And I'm just going to read Francis's statement here, if I could. Too soon to leave, but yet he's gone. My little boy, my mate, my partner, Kobe, was full of life and joy. Now he's laying without life. I shouted his name over and over, but he's not responding. I was my best self next to him, and now I have no clue of who I am. Life is so unfair to hit us where it hurts the most. How do you deal with such a thing? How can you live with it? Please help me if you have an idea, because I really don't know what to do and how to deal with this. So it's every parent's greatest nightmare. You know, I think a lot of us sort of lived it vicariously through Nick Catone back in 2017. Kenny, we were in Dallas, Texas, I believe UFC 211 or something like that. Frankie Edgar was there competing against Yair Rodriguez, and we got the news that Nick Catone's son had passed away. And, you know, Nick Catone at this stage of his life, Kenny, you know, I hate to sort of suggest that he's like waiting to die, but his every day is just rooted in emotion to be with his late son, Nicholas, again. And there are certainly people that Francis Ngannou can reach out to, like Nick Catone, like Daniel Cormier, people who have been through this. But I mean, to say my heart goes out to Francis Ngannou doesn't even begin to describe my sentiments. We all know of the bond between Francis Ngannou and his coach, Eric Nixick's son, Knox, but many of us didn't even know that Francis had a son, Kobe. So we just wanted to begin the show that way. And as fathers ourselves, Kenny, this just sent the worst kind of chills rifling through our veins.
It really is heartbreaking. And this is a parent's worst nightmare. Having lost a brother and seeing the anguish that my parents went through. And this is, you know, my brother who was a lot older. But anytime you have a baby, it is like the greatest feeling in the world. And you realize you have this delicate life in front of you that you're holding, that you get to see every day. You get to see grow and change and evolve. And it's something I can't even imagine. No parent should have to bury their child. It's an unfortunate reality for many out there, unfortunately. And I had no idea that he even had a child. And to see him come out and say that, it's awful. It's terrible news. I hope that he's going to be able to get through this with courage and grace, like he has shown before. And my prayers are with his family.
I did reach out to Eric Nixick to offer up my love and support, and he just wrote back, my heart absolutely breaks for him. This poor man is questioning life as if he did something wrong. And I think that's the big challenge for Francis Ngannou, is getting past this hurdle, which is going to be an everyday hurdle for the rest of his life, right? But he's just really such a gracious individual, and this really hit the entire MMA community so hard. And we're going to get into the mixed martial arts stuff here in a little bit, but they say that a mother or a father is only as happy as their saddest child. And oftentimes when Kenny and I are together a couple times a year, he'll be like, how are the kids? And I'll be like, Ken, that's a loaded fucking question. Like, yeah, they're fine. But like, my son just got diagnosed with celiac disease. He's anemic, and he might have to go on human growth hormone and get a shot every day for the next 15 years because he's tiny, right? So there's always something when it comes to children and health. And I think a lot of us deal with it. I mean, look at what's going on in the world right now in Gaza and everywhere else, right? But this just really is so unfair, and just the worst kind of avalanche to be dropped upon you. And we just wanted to dedicate today's episode of the Anik Florian podcast to the memory of Francis Ngannou's late son, Kobe. And our thoughts are firmly with you today, Francis. But we do need to spin it forward to that end. Headlines is brought to you by Cuervo. Now's a good time to enjoy the tequila that invented tequila. So a huge win for Alex Perez at UFC Fight Night. We'll get into that in a little bit with Ray Longo, with Ken Flo. We will talk to Alex himself. But one storyline that I just wanted to hit on with you off the top of the show, if I could. So UFC 304 is going to be in Manchester, England. I believe it is July 27th. But that pay-per-view start time is going to be 3 a.m. in Manchester, 5 hours ahead of the East Coast of the U.S., so it'll be a standard 10 p.m. Eastern pay-per-view start for UFC 304. Now, there are a lot of different broadcasting challenges, whether we're in Australia or Brazil or England. Right this weekend, UFC 301, the pay-per-view main card begins at 2 a.m. But here's a quote from Tom Aspinall. As an athlete, as a fighter, in all honesty, it doesn't make that much difference, he said on his YouTube channel. Probably for a couple of weeks before I'll have to wake up and train at that time or stay up or whatever, yada, yada, yada. Predominantly, it's an American audience, so I understand that they want to sell to them, but why can't they sell to them in the afternoon, which is our evening time? Why can't the Americans watch it in the afternoon, and the UK fans, the Manchester fans, the European fans can all fly to the event and sell out this new arena? I mean, it's going to sell out regardless. We're very, very lucky to have a pay-per-view in Manchester. Very lucky. But UK MMA, let's put it on UK time. A lot of masters to serve and pacify and feed, Kenny, right? But this is a tricky thing. I mean, you and I can harken back to the days of calling fights in Brazil in non-air-conditioned arenas where Lyoto Machida maybe is walking out there to fight CB Dalloway in Barueri at 4:30 in the morning, and the fans are sleeping and fanning themselves. I understand why this is happening in a time slot that caters to the American audience, but I'm hoping that with this sort of momentum and venom and guys like Tom Aspinall talking, that maybe the promotion will at least consider going 10 a.m. in Manchester, because for those fans, man, it's asking a lot, right? To potentially have Tom Aspinall make the walk at 5:30, 5:45 in the morning.
The UK fans and the people in Europe have it pretty rough in general. I mean, everything from, having to watch the fights, early into the morning, all that stuff. It is brutal. But, John, I think it has to do with us winning the war in the late 1700s.
Oh, come on.
We won the war. We are the champions. Sorry, UK. Get out of here.
How about that? Yeah.
At
Kenny Florian, if you want to direct your venom his way. But it is an interesting situation, because there have been times where we have been in places like Abu Dhabi where maybe we're catering to their time zone as opposed to the American audience. It is what it is. But I guess I just wanted to say to all the European and UK fans, you have our ultimate respect that you watch this sport all through the night at ungodly hours. Because for me, even watching a UFC fight night, that begins at 9 p.m. Eastern time. I'm falling asleep before the main event, but we'll try to keep you awake with our energy at UFC 304. So, Ken Flo, I was in Las Vegas this past weekend for the Patrick Mahomes charity golf tournament, his foundation 15 and the Mahomes. What an experience that was. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce at the gala the night before. They auctioned off 4 Taylor Swift tickets. And actually, the guy who bought them, this guy, Oscar Reyes, spent $80,000 on these 4 Taylor Swift tickets, right? And I would suggest to people who sort of scoff at this dude spending 80 grand on Taylor Swift tickets, it's like 80 cents to him, right? It's probably like $8 to him. Like, it truly doesn't make any financial imprint with him. But it was cool to, see all the athletes, and Patrick Mahomes, just what a stud of a human being. I mean, as great a quarterback as he is, just such a good guy, and being able to meet some of the NFL players. Tony Finau, the PGA Tour pro, 6 tour wins. He actually didn't win the tournament, but he was a part of it as well. Michelle Wee West, former LPGA Tour pro. We actually have the same agent. She was in the field as well. But I just have to say, bro, like, for somebody like me who can't keep a golf ball in play, I'm actually better than I let on. But to be able to play Shadow Creek Golf Course, a private track in Las Vegas, back-to-back days, was like a once-in-a-lifetime experience. But I showed up thinking that I was going to be like playing with NFL celebrities. And when I got there, I realized that I was the celebrity. So a tough draw for people in my foursome. Maybe you're expected to get like Joe Hayden or Justin Gaethje, and you end up with fucking Jon Anik. But I tried to make it fun for those people. But thank you to the charity 15 and the Mahomes. Thank you to Patrick Mahomes and Brittany Mahomes. And by the way, I'll leave you with this before we get to the UFC stuff. So I bid on a silent auction item because I felt like I'm there, right? They're taking care of me. It's this unbelievable golf weekend, probably costs $15,000 a head for people who are participating. So I'm going to bid on something, right? So I see a Jamar Chase Cincinnati Bengals helmet, autographed by Jamar Chase, right? Thinking that's pretty cool. Maybe I could give it to Brian Petrie or my cousin Ryan, who's a big Cincinnati Bengals fan and season ticket holder, right? But what I didn't realize is that at a Kansas City Chiefs event, no one else is going to bid on the fucking Cincinnati Bengals helmet. So I bid $1,200, which was the opening bid, and that ended up being enough to take home the Jamar Chase.
Nice, dude.
Yeah. So
that's awesome. Hey, listen, how did you play, dude? Honestly, how did you play?
So it was a scramble, right? Which means you don't play your own ball the whole time. So I wasn't great off the tee. I think on 18 holes, we only used my drive 3 or 4 times. But I putted the ball well. So I did make 4 par putts for my team. I made 1 birdie putt for my team. So the greens were true. They were fast. I putted much better on those than I do at the public tracks in Boca Raton, Florida. So, but it's interesting when you're playing team golf because there's just a different focus. Like when I'm playing my individual ball and, sometimes I might be drinking, puffing cannabis out there in whatever condition. Dude, I was so fucking drunk during the practice round. I had a transfusion for the first time. It's like a golf drink. It's vodka, grape juice, ginger ale, and club soda. But the grape juice just kills the vodka. So I probably had like 9 shots of Grey Goose over the 3-hour round. So at one point on 15, I'm standing over my golf ball, bro. Wind is just purring, and I'm drunk. And I'm looking down at the golf ball, and it's like, I think it says Titleist, but I'm not sure it said Titleist. So I was pretty lathered. But on Sunday for the actual tournament, and I know some of you don't care about this, but when you're putting for a team, even if there's not money on the line, it's just a different focus. Like when I'm playing by myself, 3 sheets to the wind, like I'm just looking to get to the next hole and pull out my driver. I'm not even focused on the putt. So I did have more of a focus actually on the greens than I do when I'm playing my own ball. So
that's awesome. Hey, and are your kids are Swiftie fans, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
Did
we
you
will
get a pick with Taylor Swift?
No, I mean, I knew better than to go ask for a picture with Taylor Swift. But I will be taking my daughters to the Taylor Swift concert in October. Our good friend Spencer Miller,
nice
UFC fan, supposedly is hooking it up, which is very exciting. But actually, my daughter Riley is less of a Taylor Swift fan than she was about a year ago. That doesn't mean she's going to turn down a ticket, but they're not absolutely locked in to her every song on the new album as maybe they would have been a year ago. All right, lot to get into. UFC Fight Night, Nicolau versus Perez, UFC 301 and all that noise. Let us get to the star of the program. His name's Ray Longo.
It's now time for the Ray Longo Minute.
I want you to punch a hole in his fucking chest. That's what I want.
The Ray Longo Minute. Starring Ray Longo. The Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
Hi. Oh, shoot. Where's my head? How we doing today?
We're
Hell
doing good. I know we're going to fix your headroom there to make us look a little bit more in sync.
There we go.
I'm in Rio de Janeiro, Ray, so I
I'm-
apologize for any connective issues or
Oh,
visual issues, but
how's
you
that
look
going
good.
so far? Oh man,
So
how's that
far,
going
so
so
good. Landed here at about 5:30 a.m. So we're sitting here on a Wednesday about 7 hours ago. I was going to go maybe run on the beach or try to swim with the triathlete Paul Felder, but I decided to sleep and prep the podcast instead. So I slept for a few hours and all things considered, doing pretty well. I saw Steve Erceg, who is fighting Alexandre Pantoja this weekend. He's been here for 2 weeks already. So
Wow, that's a serious guy.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm going with him.
well, we can get right
That's all
into
I
that.
need to. But the connection is good because last week you froze, and Kenny, you remember
I
you
do.
froze. He froze, but his mustache was still moving. Very creepy. It was very. I sort of. I don't know what the hell was going on.
Right.
Like your mustache had a life of its own.
Right.
Even during the freezer craze,
I did go back and watch that transition when we had the technical issues. And Ray, I thought you were fucking hilarious. So you handled that seamlessly.
I wish I could remember what I was hilarious about, but that ship has sailed.
All right, so we got a lot to get into today. We'll recap some of this UFC fight night. Alex Perez actually going to join us in about 15 minutes. So we got about a quarter of an hour here with Ray Longo. Did you get your hair cut, though? It doesn't appear that you did. You didn't.
No.
Right. Okay. All right. I just
It's
want to get
somewhat
that.
combed. It's combed. He combed.
It's combed. I tried to comb it. I mean, I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm trying. That's all I can do. I tried to comb this thing.
So I did want to begin on a little bit of a somber note, if I could, because certainly when sad things happen, the MMA community comes together. But Ray, even though a lot of us felt somewhat close to Francis Ngannou, especially during his time in the UFC, a lot of us had no idea that he had a son. And, you know, sometimes I'll say things like Ronda Rousey loses to Holly Holm, and then it's like walking back into your new life after that type of result. You don't even know who you are. And I think for Francis right now, he doesn't even probably want to continue on with this life that he has worked so hard to build. It's just supremely sad and total devastation for the Ngannou family, you know?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, we all have kids, and I mean, no matter what age, when it happens, that's, I honestly, I saw his tweet reaching out for help. I mean, that has to be a bad spot to be in. And man, my heart goes out to him. And I hope I'm not out of place, but I love Nick Catone. It happened to him. I mean, that would be my suggestion. Talk to Nick, you know, because sometimes you need those support groups that have been through it. Somehow they find solace in different things. And maybe that helps because you start looking for answers that I just don't believe are out there. And, you know, my only thing would be just concentrate on how much joy that kid gave you for the time he was around and focus on that. And, you know, everybody's going to be different, but that's a gut-wrenching thing no matter what. I mean, just like, again, as a parent, it's inconceivable and horrible.
There have been a few days in my life, certainly, and we led the show, Ray, by the way, talking about Nick Catone. But
you did that because I didn't want to bring it up because he's such a great guy, man.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, that's a stand-up motherfucker, man. And I don't know, man. That stuff is, you know, when we play around and we goof around, but man, that's a shot in the nuts, man.
Oh, I haven't seen Nick in years, and I feel like he wakes up with the same pain almost every day. Just another day down until I get to see my son again. Just total devastation. There have been a few days in my life where I've felt like I've been on the brink of a panic attack because of hearing news.
Yeah,
and
100%.
When our dear friend Adam Snacks Geller passed away, Ken Flo, and I got that text from Zach Candido, that's a surefire panic attack number one for me. You know, when Kobe Bryant passed away, that was really difficult. He's one of my favorite athletes. I did have the chance to meet him. Nick Catone's son, and then Francis Ngannou's son, right? And these are not things that directly involve my family, and yet hit me as if, you know, it's been somebody supremely close to me. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on Francis. And
you don't have to know the guy, John, to I could be watching a movie where something like that happens and it triggers something. So, you know, we're all human. Unless you're completely psychopathic or sociopathic, you're gonna feel something, man. You have empathy for others, and it's just And I think as you get older, you realize a lot of, like your mortality and stuff. It's a horrible thing. I have absolutely no answers, but my heart goes out to that guy. I don't care if I know him. I mean, I did meet him. I talked to him a couple of times. Doesn't
Yeah.
even. You have to feel that pain because, again, you have kids. Even dealing with little things sometimes.
Right.
Cause a problem, and then that this kind of puts everything in perspective. But
yep, that's the truth.
absolutely.
Hey, Ken Flo, some people in the live YouTube chat are suggesting that my hotel Wi-Fi here in Rio de Janeiro is actually performing better than my $15,000 home studio. Yeah, funny for you guys, right? Funny for you guys.
It's only 15 G's. You should just stay at that hotel room in Rio and just fly every Monday or Tuesday, do the podcast there and fly back, dude.
Not that far from Miami.
Yeah.
All right. UFC 301 Fight Week is upon us. You can go to jonanik.com right now and get 20% off of all your Anik and Florian podcasts and one more sleep merchandise with promo code UFC 301. So UFC 300, Ray, is sort of a tough act to follow for the pay-per-view this weekend. I mean, we have 14 fights. The pay-per-view main card has been criticized by some. We have 3 massive betting favorites to begin the card: Caio Borralho, Michel Pereira, and Vitor Petrino, of course, against Anthony Lionheart Smith. But we got a fascinating flyweight championship fight. And those who thought that Alexandre Pantoja was going to be some 3 or 4 to 1 favorite against Steve Erceg, that is not at all the case. So what do you make of this flyweight championship fight we got here in 4 days, Raymond?
Wait, what are the odds, first of all?
So right now, and again, these are on DraftKings Sportsbook, and this price is bouncing around a little bit. But right now, Alexandre Pantoja is minus 192, and Steve Erceg is plus 160. So, under 2 to 1, pretty close, all things considered.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, we don't know that much about Erceg, but I'd like the way he looked in the last fight. I think like what I could gather on his feet, he's going to do fine. It's how his takedown defense holds up, and I think that's going to be the key in the fight. And I think Pantoja does get a little tired moving on, but I'm trying to go back. Well, who was he fought? Montoya's
yes, Brandon Royval.
And Royval made some. I think he just kept making mistake after mistake in that fight. I don't know if Erceg's going to do that, but Royval had more experience, so I think it's an intriguing fight. I'm excited for it. But I'm not counting Erceg out by no means.
Yeah. So, Ray, Perth, Western Australia is about as far away a place as there is from New York City or Miami in the world, right? So I don't know that you can, in totality, effectively answer this question, right? But when you're traveling with athletes internationally, going to Abu Dhabi, right? Like Erceg's already been here for 2 weeks. Leon Edwards is a guy who oftentimes will go to Salt Lake City, Utah, 2.5, 3 weeks out to acclimate, right?
Yeah.
Does that make you feel like there is less of a home field, home court advantage, so to speak, when a guy spends 2 or 3 weeks in Brazil prior to the fight? Like how early have you ever gone for an international fight for one of your high profile guys?
I mean, they've gone early. I mean, listen, I'm going to tell you something. Back in the day, I would go to Vegas 2 weeks early with Sarah. You know what I mean? And I don't think he ever lost in Vegas, maybe the Hughes fight, but because there's an altitude change even from New York to Vegas, nobody even brings that up anymore. It's like people just fly in and do it. But back then, we took, it was a higher altitude, and we'd go in 2 weeks early for that. So the other, now as I got older, I would go in a week before, but these guys are young, man. They're bouncing around.
Yeah.
They get there early. It's a different vibe. But back in the day, we did it even for Vegas, and we weren't really fighting internationally back then.
Yeah, I did as well. It gets pretty dry there as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely some higher altitude than New York, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, Aldo, the guy who fought Merab last, he's back. How do you think he's going to perform? And do you think he's fighting for the right reasons?
I think he's going to do great. And then that could be my heart talking. I'm a big Jose Aldo fan, so I think he's going to do great, and I think he is fighting for the right reason. I don't know why, but I have nothing tangible to back it up. But he seems like he did good in those boxing matches, and I think he's still dangerous, man. It's a 3-round fight or a 5-round fight. Do we know? 3 rounds.
Right?
3 rounds, he's good to go, I think. The 5, I think, is asking a little too much, but 3 rounds, come on. I think he was beating Petey Yan when Yan was, like, indestructible. You know, I think he was doing great in that fight, and he just, you know, the cardio got to him and the pressure. But I think this is a great fight for him. I'm pulling for him, and I think he's fighting for the right reasons, and I think he's going to do great. What are the odds on that fight?
I will get you those right now. Some money seemingly has come in on Jose Aldo. He's down to plus 130.
Yep.
Jonathan Martinez is minus 155. So, but it's interesting. I am hosting the UFC 301 weigh-in show, sitting in for Dan Hellie this weekend. And one of the questions that they are having us all answer is, Jose Aldo, is he coming back for the right or the wrong reasons? Kenny, I'm curious where you stand on that. I think a lot of my colleagues are going to suggest he's coming back for the wrong reasons. You know, I think there are some reasons that make sense for this, right? I mean, certainly number one is money, right? Probably making $1 million+ to show. But Merab's the only guy to beat him dating to 2020, right? He has won 3 of his last 4. He has proven to be competitive. You know, he's only been finished sparingly, right? Like, obviously money leads the dance, Kenny, right? But what do you think about this comeback from Jose Aldo less than a year after he was inducted into the Hall of Fame?
I mean, 7 figures is a lot of reasons, I got to say. But no, I listen, I think he's set either way. I don't think he's coming back for money alone. I think he sees this as not only an opportunity to kind of test where he's at against some of the best in that division, but also we have to remember that the first fight that was proposed to him wasn't Jonathan Martinez. It was Dominic Cruz, right?
Actually, I was with Dom a couple days ago.
So what did he say? Okay.
Dom was never offered that fight. He would have taken it in blank.
You just ruined my whole point.
I know.
Oh, well, but I'm glad you mentioned it. Okay. So he mentioned something to that effect. That that was something that was offered to him. Again, whether it was offered to Dom or not is a different question.
Right.
But it seemed like he was interested in that fight. And that to me tells me he wants to fight the top guys and still thinks that he can fight the top guys. So I think we'll see a sharp Jose Aldo. You know, we'll get into the breakdown later, of course, with predictions and things. But this is a serious matchup for him. You don't just go out there and fight someone like Jonathan Martinez and think it's going to be a walk in the park. I think he's expecting a tough challenge, and I think he trained very hard for it.
Yeah, and I think we got to hope that Jonathan Martinez doesn't fall into the idol, factor too. Like, he looked up to this guy coming up, and now he's fighting him, and sometimes that has a little bit of an effect. But like, again, he's still, like you say, he's competitive. And if he's making money, he's in Brazil. I think that's a big factor for him. I think it's all good. And he deserves it. And I'm hoping he does well, because he's a legend.
And I mean, let's talk about how good Merab has looked. I mean, he has smashed every single person. It was a close fight against Jose Aldo.
Without a doubt.
But it was close. It's not like Jose got blown out of the water like Henry Cejudo did.
Or Peter Yan. Or Yan.
Exactly, or Yan. So Merab's killing it right now. And I think it shows that that Jose Aldo is still at the elite level and competing at the elite level.
Yeah, still the takedown defense really held up. Now, it could be that I'd have to go back and look, but I know that there's momentum too. So I think even Merab, that was a huge name for Merab. You know what I mean? And he's human too. So I think once he got that under his belt, the momentum just led to that domination over Petey Yan for 5 rounds was insane. And what he did to Henry was insane. But I think that's all coming off the heels of beating a legend like that. And then, and Merab's a really, really good dude. And I'm sure that meant a lot to him,
Look at all the legends that Team Sarah Longo have left in their wake. Anderson
Silva,
are you gonna do? Jose Aldo, Piotr Yan, and on it goes. So do we have any idea when Merab Dvalishvili is going to challenge Sugar Sean O'Malley for the undisputed UFC Bantamweight title? Noche UFC in September? What do we think?
Man, that would be nice.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard a damn thing about it.
Yeah.
He's waiting. He's just, all you got to do is wait. He's waiting for the call. He'll sign the contract tomorrow.
Yeah. It seems as though if either Merab Dvalishvili or Bilal Muhammad is passed over for a championship opportunity, this fan base is going to absolutely riot. All right, we're going to go 4 wide right now and welcome into the conversation a man who is just 5 days removed from a huge knockout win in the main event. Now the number 5 ranked UFC flyweight contender, former world title challenger, Alex Perez. AP, appreciate your time today, man. Congrats. How we doing?
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Feeling good, man. Just hanging out for a little bit and getting ready for the next one.
So those of us who have tracked your every move dating to the Davison Figueiredo fight in 2020 are just really happy for you, and seeing how emotional you were after the fight, repeatedly embracing Colin Oyama and your team and telling your son Noah that you're going to see him in 15 minutes. It just was a really special moment. And a lot of people felt like this was a smart career move for you to make the quick turn after Muhammad Mokaev fight. And obviously now you have this great result. So take me back there, though. You are very competitive with Mokaev March 2nd. And then shortly thereafter, you get a call to step in here. What led to you accepting this fight and this making that decision on short notice?
For me, it was just I'm always in the gym, like right after my fight. No injuries, a little bumps and bruises, but I mean that's part of it. And I was helping Cody. I was happy Cynthia Cavillo and then Cody Garbrandt in their camp. So I was as soon as I was done fighting, it's like, hey, I text them like, hey, you guys are up next. Let's get this going. And I helped them out. So I'm always in shape. Like I wrestled with Cody. I drew over Cody. We grappled together. I didn't spar with him too much. But I was already in shape, and when they called me and asked me, I was just like, yeah, why not? That's why I stay training. That's why I'm always at the gym. A lot of people, I feel like a lot of people after their fights, they take a little vacation for a month or two. Usually, I'm right back in the gym, just trying to get better and trying to work on my skills. Win or lose, there's always something you can work on.
Well, you definitely showed improvement from the Mokaev fight, man. And, that first round I felt was crucial for you of getting that momentum. Did you feel like that kind of set your mind right and your body right after that first round, which I thought you handily won?
Yeah, I felt like I was able to get all my stuff together, for me it was just being active is the best part just because I can just keep going, it's when I take these long breaks is usually when I kind of have to find my groove. So being active, I come from a wrestling background, so being active is super key for me. So that's why I jumped right back into training, right back into taking the short notice fight, and I was able to catch basically my rhythm from the Micaiah fight, going back into here right away. So, like I said, I was happy I was able to win that first round, and everything was working out great. All our game planning and stuff that we did, because I only train with my team. Like now that after the fight, I only train with Colin Oyama, Tyler, and Jiva. I train with them all the time when I'm in California.
Right.
But I only train with them for a week for this fight.
Wow.
Because I had Cynthia Cavillo, and then I right after that I had Cody Garbrandt. So what I did was, hey, Cody had all the coaches here, so I was like, hey, I'm gonna fly out to California for this week and just get training in. I'll be back for your fight. So I did that, and then I was like, should I fly out for the last week or should I just stay in Vegas? And I was like, you know what? Let's just stay in Vegas. I don't want to travel too much more. And I ended up staying in Vegas, and it was hard to find partners. So I ended up getting my one of the he was an intern here at the UFC. His name's Juan, young kid coming up. I was like, bro, I need a training partner. He's like, well, I was like, I'm just starting to train. I was like, I just need you to do this. I just do this. We're kind of game plan like that. So I literally was finding people out of the blue. Just, hey, I need some training partners for this week. My team gets here next week, and yeah, so it was good just for that week of training. Everything worked out great.
Alex, you talked about the game plan a little bit. Was part of that game plan pitting him up against the cage and then kind of unleashing hell? It kind of reminded me of the Topuria knockout over Volkanovski.
Honestly, the way I broke down his fight, kind of like, I mean, I fought like karate guys before and stuff, but he's not really a karate guy. He uses lateral movement pretty well. So what I knew he was gonna eventually put himself on the cage. Like that's the way he fights. When obviously, if you watch me fight, I'm always coming forward. So I think he expected that. And I was just using my footwork, just stepping. Every time he would step, I would step, or I would try to beat him to a certain position, just because I knew eventually he was gonna run into the cage, and I knew I was gonna miss a lot, right? Because he's very quick. He moved back, so I knew I was gonna miss the first two, maybe three, but I either finish on the leg or attack the body. And when I pinned him against that cage, I kind of just go into autopilot, We train so much, the natural reactions. Like people are like, how'd you see that body shot? Or how'd you see that right hook? I was like, man, my body just takes over, and it kind of just goes from there. So I knew I was gonna get him against the cage eventually. I just didn't know when. And then when I did, I was just like, hey, I gotta unload something, and who knows? We'll just see what happens from there.
Alex Perez with us here on the Anik Florian podcast. You can follow him on Instagram at Alex Perez MMA. So to get a knockout like that, bro, in a fucking main event, I'm not going to sit here and suggest it's like a once in a lifetime opportunity or possibility, right? But that's the type of highlight that will not only withstand the test of time, but Noah's going to see that in a few years. Can you just describe to me what that feeling is like? You have a short training camp and you dust a guy like that up against the fence. You get a walk-off knockout. I mean, dude, it can't get much better than that other than winning the world title, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, it feels good, especially because, like, even though, like, the last couple fights haven't gone my way, I have improved. And then obviously you seen improvement from the Micaiah fight to this fight, and that was only about 6 weeks apart. So it was great. Obviously just for me, it's more about showing the coaches and the people that put time and spend time away from their family that, hey, everything we're doing is leading me to the right track. And I was more happy about that just because I said, like, it's been a tough couple, like 3 or 4 years. So
Right.
for me, it was all about just showing everybody that reminding everybody I was still here. My team still believed in me. They tell me all the time, like, you were one of the best in the world.
Yeah,
I
dude.
trained with Ricky Simone, Chito Vera, Fernando Padilla, Cynthia, Cody, Garbrandt, Lance Palmer. The names go on, and guys underneath me that beat me up every day, and they're like, "Hey, dude, you're one of the best in the world." And I think it just reminded everybody that, hey, I'm still here.
And you're such a good dude. And I would also let our listeners and viewers know just how many complimentary things Cody Garbrandt had to say about you in our fighter meeting leading up to UFC 300. So I know you've been a huge resource for him. So as you sort of spin things forward, and we'll get to the title fight this weekend between Steve Erceg and Alexandre Pantoja, but at times, whether it was because of injuries or circumstance, you were a little bit of the forgotten man in this division, and now you are anything but. So how quickly do you think things could happen for you here in 2024 as you try to get back to a championship setting?
Well, I mean, right after the fight, I was supposed to fight Tajir on June 15th, and they hit me up like, "Hey, you still want to fight June 15th?" So I was like, "Yeah, I'm down." So I'm going back in there right away.
Good.
People are asking me like, "Oh, why are you taking a fight against this guy?" One, he's dangerous. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, everybody in the division is dangerous, right? And especially in the top 15. But for me, like people are like, you should wait for a title shot. I'm like, brother, I'm one in. I won one fight out of in the last so many years. I know I got to do some more work. If everything fell into place, I mean, everybody was injured and stuff like that, then yeah, I can see myself. But I mean, you got Brandon Royval still in the mix. You got all these other guys. So for me, it's about staying active. And when I first got into UFC, I never really asked for a title shot or anything. I just kept winning, and eventually they didn't
Yeah.
deny me. So kind of the same mindset. Just go in there, chop everything down, beat everybody I can, and just go from there. So hopefully by the end of the year, I'm back in title contention. But one fight at a time.
Well, we're all really happy for you. A couple more minutes here with Alex Perez. I will get to Acai Republic, of course, on the way out. But when you faced to figure out for the belt in 2020, COVID climate, a lot of different circumstances, you were a plus 225 underdog in that fight. Alexandre Pantoja, Steve Erceg this weekend. Steve Erceg about a plus 160 underdog, so it seems like a lot of people are giving him a chance. I know we have limited footage and B-roll of Steve Erceg right now. It's 3 UFC fights, but in your division, I know you're going to be watching intently. Like, what type of chance, realistically, do you give Steve Erceg to persist to beat the champion?
Man, it's an interesting fight, right? There's not a lot of information on Steve really, like inside the UFC, but he's a stud. People don't understand. Like, he didn't just get here by luck. He came in here, fought a ranked guy right off the back. So he was ranked right off the back, his very first fight. Then he comes in, beats Alessandro, and then he comes in and beats Matt Chanel in a devastating fashion. So for me, I think it's a good fight. People don't give Steve enough credit. Like, he's a big guy. He has very good boxing. And Pantoja's been hurt before. I'm not saying that he's gonna finish him, but Pantoja's been hurt. He does get hit. Obviously, I want Pantoja to win because if I fight for the title, I want to beat a guy that beat me before.
Right.
But I mean, it's a close fight. Like, people don't understand. Like, Steve could knock him out. He's a long guy. Pantoja is a dog. Don't get me wrong, he's maybe not the cleanest striker, but he is a dog. He's been in some wars. But like I said, I give it 70-30, 70% chance Pantoja wins,
Yeah.
30% chat. Steve wins just because Steve's going to hostile environment. I don't know if he's ever been there. And Pantoja has the experience. He's been 5 rounds, been in some war. So, I mean, I think it's going to be a great fight, but Steve does have a chance. I think people are counting him out like, oh, this guy, doesn't deserve it. I'm like, dude, like this guy's a stud, man. He's not a slouch.
That's a nice answer right there from Alex Perez at Alex Perez MMA and Acai Republic, Orange, California, right? Your new business, relatively speaking. How often are you actually in there?
Anytime I'm in California, I'm in there. I believe in the old school method. I go in there and work sometimes. I go in there, we do old school flyering. So I'm out there in the parking lots passing out flyers, going
Yeah.
to businesses. I'm sending emails in the morning to schools. Every morning I try to send 5 to 10 emails. Hey, we're doing fundraisers, trying to get our name out in the community. Right now, business is great. I mean, it's summer, so everything's going well. But I'm in there as much as I can, especially just training all the time. So I try to be in there. I try to be hands-on, a hands-on owner. And I'm consistently talking to everybody at the shop, from the manager all the way down. Like without them, for sure, I wouldn't be able to run this business by myself. Because even when I'm in there, they're telling me what to do. So,
Right.
So I just try to get in there as much as possible, and it's good. Like for me, I got to stay busy. Everybody's like, man, how do you focus on your son, your business, and training? For me, I've always had a job. People always think like, oh, like is this distracting? Even when I fought for the title, I was working. People don't know that, but I was working still. I was working, a few hours a day, probably like 4 hours, 5 hours a day, doing a regular job, just because eventually fighting's gonna end. And I feel like the further and further you get away from actually having to work and stuff, the harder it is to get back into the real world. So for me, I've always stayed working, and this is another day for me. I wake up in the morning, send emails, go train, come back, look at the emails, talk to my team. We have a group message. We're always texting and stuff on there, and yeah, man, I enjoy it a lot.
That's great, man. Yeah, he was coaching wrestling for a while also competing. Now in the acai business. Ray Longo, you ever had a fucking acai bowl or no?
I actually have. This guy sounds like he's got his head screwed on right. He's a hard worker outside the octagon and inside the octagon. I love it. Love everything he's saying. And he potentially saved a possibly crappy night with that knockout. So at least we finished on a good note, which should have got you more eyeballs because not much else was going on. So I'm happy for you, buddy. You seem like a great guy.
Thank you.
Well, Alex, congrats, man. It was really cool to sit home and watch that result on TV. Congrats on the bonus and everything else that you have going on in your life. We appreciate a few minutes, and got to think we're going to see you in a big spot later this year. But best of luck on June 15th if that holds together, and we appreciate a few minutes, my man.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure, brother. There he is, Alex Perez,
right.
UFC's number 5 ranked flyweight contender, bonus winning knockout over Mateus Nicolau this weekend. Kenflo Nicolau was the favorite going in there, and Perez muted all that noise and then some. Huge knockout for the little guy.
Yeah, man, I'm glad I picked him. I saw a lot of value there. Again, one thing that's really hard to just get when you're early into the UFC is experience, and that's where Perez really had the advantage. He fought a great fight and got the finish, man. Just a tremendous result against a very dangerous guy in Nicolau, and I think it's going to be tough for Nicolau to kind of move up from there. That was a big setback, I think.
I'll tell you, and really, you could tell by the way he talks. He's got his head screwed on right. You could tell he's a hardworking guy. I love what he's doing with the business, everything. I mean, that's the way you have to be, and he's got great hands too, and he's a good wrestler. So,
John, it reminds me. Can you bring back an acai for me, dude? Just throw it in your suitcase.
I got
you back.
Some of the acai places in South Florida are really good, but what's amazing is just how much sugar is in some of these relative to others, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes my daughters will be like, yeah, I want to go to acai Concept. And I'm like, dude, that's straight fucking sugar. If we go to juice, it's actually a little bit healthier and not just a dessert. But I believe on the UFC 301 weigh-in show on Friday morning, one of the challenges is going to be for us all to make an acai bowl, and then like Dean Thomas or somebody is going to eat them, and one thing that my daughter Riley always gets in her acai bowl is Nutella, and it's like cheating. It's like, you put that chocolate in there, so I might have to go Nutella to see if I can win this.
John, last acai bowl I had, I was in a diabetic coma. I'm not joking. Like that's how much
Oh,
those.
yeah.
I mean, you better have some protein. You better eat a hamburger before that.
Right,
'Cause
right.
that is not looking good, man.
So, was there anything else that happened in this UFC fight night that I need to hit on, guys? We had Bogdan Guskov over Ryan Spann with a pretty violent TKO.
Yeah.
Obviously, Karini Silva on the main card, Jonata Deniz over Austin Lane, David Onama with a nice resilient win over Jonathan Pierce, Uros Medic with a huge bonus winning knockout at Timmy Means business. Kenny, anything jump off the card for you before we spin this pig forward?
I thought the Medic knockout was tremendous. And then Karini Silva, she's someone to watch, man. She is going to be a problem for a lot of people. Just cool under pressure, very well-rounded game. She knows how to put it all together. Keep an eye on her.
Ray, anything that you want to touch on before I get quickly into some UFC 301 stuff and get you out of here?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, all right, good. Let's fucking bury that fight to get.
No, that night I was struggling. I was all over the place. that kid actually saved the night with the knockout. I'm not joking. For me, anyway.
All right, so Cody is going to chase these poll results for us, but I just wanted to ask you, Ray, and I know you're not prepared for this question, and we're going to get Kenny's predictions later, but part of the criticism for this UFC 301 pay-per-view main card is that we begin with 3 fights that on paper don't appear to be all that competitive. Now, I can sit here and look back at you guys and say, don't even tell me that Anthony Smith and Vitor Petrino is not competitive. It's Anthony Smith's 57th fucking pro fight. He's an absolute gamer. But the odds suggest that Caio Borralho, Michel Pereira, and Vitor Petrino should all take care of business. They're all approaching like minus 600. So of the underdogs this weekend, Ray, you got Paul Craig against Caio Borralho, Ukraine's Ihor Potieria taking on Michel Pereira, who's won 7 in a row. Vitor Petrino's 11-0, taking on Anthony Smith. Of those underdogs, who do you like? Who do you think has a chance? 54% of our poll respondents believe that Paul Craig against Caio Borralho has the best chance to spring the upset. Your thoughts?
Oh, I definitely understand that. You know, I would go with Paul Craig, but I'm pulling for Anthony Smith. So, well, you know, I'm gonna answer this question with my heart and not my. But I want Anthony Smith to do well, so I'm gonna go with Anthony Smith. But you could see why Paul Craig could catch in a triangle while he's probably standing up at this point. So.
26% of you believe Anthony Smith of the big underdogs has the best chance to win against Vitor Petrino, and then just 20% of you like Ihor Potieria against Michel Pereira. Ken Flo, I know we're going to get to your prediction here in a little bit, but you know, Caio Borralho minus 575, Michel Pereira minus 650, Vitor Petrino minus 550.
Wow.
Of Paul Craig plus 425, Ihor Potieria plus 470, Anthony Smith plus 410. Ken Flo, forced to back one of those 3 underdogs. Do you agree with the masses? You like Paul Craig or no?
No, I actually like Anthony Smith. The problem is that Borralho is also a high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and the way that you nullify submissions is by having superior position. And Borralho isn't a guy who just kind of wildly scrambles. He's very methodical. He's a thinker. He puts it all together with his striking. So I don't see him really getting caught by something with Craig, especially since you cut the story, like the blueprint's out on Craig now. Like, you know, you have to be really, really aware when you hit the ground with him. So yeah, I think Anthony Smith is that dude, because how many times have we showed up and we've seen Anthony Smith as an underdog and he has a great game plan, executes well, and he surprises everybody. Also, you know, his length and all that stuff, he can catch you with a lot of different things. So I think Anthony Smith would be my pick.
All right, Ray, I'll leave you with this. I think Aljamain Sterling leads the league in work hard, play hard, right? I mean, my goodness. I mean, this dude, Turks and Caicos, fucking cigars. He's got an alcohol IV, I think it looked like in Turks. But yeah, he knows how to have fun. And I think a lot of us that devote a lot of our professional lives and our personal lives to whatever our craft is, he seems to have struck a better balance than me. That dude fucking gets after it, huh?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm a big believer in work hard, play hard, for sure. So he's following a good tradition. But yeah, he definitely knows how to have a good time. He's supposed to be in the gym tonight too, so I'll get to see him. I haven't seen him since the fight. So I'm looking forward to that.
All right, well, tell him I was making fun of him today, and he's inspired
100%.
me to get absolutely lathered tonight. I have fighter meetings tomorrow, but a lot of my prep is already done, and I'm going to get fucking shit canned tonight with Paul Felder on the beach in Rio at Ray Longo MMA, star of the show. We appreciate you. We love you. And just so you know, this Sunday, Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, we're going live at 11:30 a.m. Eastern with our UFC 301 recap. So as much of that show as you are able to attend.
I'm on. I want in. No, because I'll tell you, I'm a little under the weather now, so I'm a little off today. So
all right. See you, doctor, and get rid of it. We'll talk to you on Sunday.
Bingo bango. I'll talk to you later.
There's a cream for that. See you, Ray.
The Ray Longo Minute every week on the Anik and Florian podcast. Speaking of which, Kenny, I got a lot of chaos in my life, but one of our listeners did message me privately, and he said you did fail to acknowledge in April of 2024, the 9-year anniversary of the Anik and Florian podcast. So we started this thing April 9th, 2015. And those who have followed the show dating to episode 1 know that it took me about 6 to 8 months to convince Kenny Florian to actually commit to this exercise. But even when you look at some of the podcasts out there, like a new show like Show Me the Money with Renato Moicano, right? The big part of this podcast business is consistency. And one thing we have tried to be is consistent. And even though we have different schedules, and Kenny's schedule obviously is all over the place, and Ray and Cody and Petrie, I'm in Rio, right? But we've tried to be here for you folks basically every Monday or Wednesday for the better part of 9 years. And it's crazy to look up at the clock and the calendar, Kenny, and think that, next year we're going to have done this show for 10 years. You didn't even want to fucking do it. 10 years.
It's crazy, dude. I'm so glad you convinced me, man. You were on it, dude. I think right around that date, April 9th, was also the season 1 finale of The Ultimate Fighter. I could be wrong. It's right around there. But anyway, so a lot of significance for me in that date as well.
That's right.
But dude, it's been such a crazy trip, dude. We've been doing this a very long time, and a credit to you because you don't have to do this, dude. You have so many plates that you're spinning all the time. So thank you for being a part of it, man, and making this a very special thing for me. But this is only the beginning. We're taking it to the next level every year.
To the next level. And there's nobody I'd rather chop it up with every week than my brother, the finest MMA analyst in the space, Kenny Florian. And by the way, somebody in the chat would like us to acknowledge Charlie Arnold, my broadcasting colleague who stepped in for Joe Martinez mid-event to work as the Octagon announcer. Now, I have messaged Charlie privately. I'm not sure that she saw it. I think she's got me in that general column on Instagram. But I just have to say, it's one thing to get called upon in the middle of a show to go in and do a job that is inherently foreign to you. It's another thing to fucking crush it the way she did. And not everybody has the skill set to be able to do that particular thing. I am somebody that really enjoys female ring announcers. I really enjoy the woman on the PFL that is no longer working that show. What's her name, Ken Flo?
Lillian Garcia.
Yeah, I thought she was great. I thought Charlie did an absolutely fantastic job before Joe Martinez, who I believe has pneumonia, was able to get back in there. So congratulations to Charlie. I thought she absolutely crushed it. But I got to say, Ken Flo, selfishly or otherwise, I've been fucking waiting for something to happen to Bruce Buffer when I'm calling fights my entire career, waiting to hit that talkback button and say to Zach Candido and Lappy LaPlante, dude, let me get in there and fucking roar, because I think for a lot of us, we want to see if we have the chops to actually go in there and do that. So not to say I was envious of Charlie, but I just want to say that if it was me and not John Gooden in that booth, I would have been fucking begging the producers.
John wants to let his hands go. I love it. Hey, listen, it would never happen because Bruce Buffer would sprain something or pull a hammy. He's always stretching before fights. He takes care of himself, John.
Yeah.
He keeps himself in good shape.
That's
He's always moving. He does his warm-up prep before every event. He's ready, dude. I don't know if that's going to happen, John.
Oh, it's not going to happen. He would sooner do it from like a wheelchair in the inspection zone than let me go in there. Imagine if I was like, hey, Buff, can I drop an it's time or no? He'd be like, Johnny, if you drop an it's time, I'm going to terminate our friendship.
He'd sue your ass.
But a great job by Charlie. I just thought her inflection, her energy was fucking fantastic, and not everybody can do that. So congrats to Charlie, and we wish Joe Mott a quick recovery. All right, now it is time to bring on the biggest gun on the show, at Brian Petrie MMA, host of the MMA Takes podcast, our chief handicapper for the Main Event Challenge. and he's not there, but it looks pretty good with Brian Petrie set up in the middle of our screen.
Yeah.
Petrie's been with us for about 18 months. Oh!
Oh! Wow.
What's up, kids?
Bro, I
looks like he's
love
15, by the way.
I look
like
young.
15.
Here's what it is. In my head, in my confidence, I look like Brad Pitt at the end of the Fight Club when he shaves his head. But in reality, I look like John Candy from Stripes. You know what I mean? So, but man, it feels good. Did it yesterday, bro.
Bro, I mean, you know that I have a lot of passion for men's hair.
Yes.
I think you look great. What does Erica Petrie have to say? I think it looks great.
So it took her a little bit. So she cut my hair, and she didn't have her proper tools. We have some like bullshit tools in the house. She cuts it in the kitchen. I went to work and I got some chirps. They're like, dude, you missed the side of your head. So I came home and it's hot in Cincinnati. And I'm like, just let's reset for the summer. Just take it off and reset for the summer. So I had to sell her on a little bit, but ultimately, she did it. And yeah, my kids like it. And I used to rock this. This was my hair when I was in my early 20s. Comfortable, no mess. But yeah, I figured I surprised JA with it a little bit here.
The whiffle.
Oh, yeah, Bob.
I think you look great. I really do. And I hope you will keep it short. So you were not in the back room for the beginning of this program today. Is that accurate?
I was watching live before I hopped on. Correct. I saw some of it.
So did you hear my story about the Patrick Mahomes silent auction?
A little bit. Oh, yeah. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
All right. So my brother thinks that I need to send this to you. I don't know if I'm giving this to you yet. Okay. But so there's a silent auction before the actual auction where you can write down a bid on certain items. There was an autographed picture of former Chicago Bears head coach Mike Ditka flipping the bird. How that didn't sell, I don't know. But then I stumble across a Jamar Chase signed Cincinnati Bengals helmet, and it's signed perfectly. Yeah. And I'm not thinking that I'm here in like a Kansas City Chiefs environment at the time, right? So the opening bid, $1,200. So I bid on the helmet, maybe give it to my guy Petrie if I win it. My cousin Ryan Holzapple, diehard Cincinnati Bengals fan, season ticket holder, right? So at the end of the night, I go back and I look at it, and I was the only person to bid on the Jamar Chase helmet. So
love it.
$1,230 later to the 15 and the Mahomes Foundation, and that Bengals helmet is being shipped to my home studio. So
I love it, bro. Yeah, I suggest you keep it. He's a Hall of Famer, and the Patriots, I don't like the draft pick, Johnny. I don't know what to tell you. I don't like it. So maybe you can hop on the Bengals bandwagon. We don't have many people. You can hop on, bud.
Well, Joe Burrow, the Bengals quarterback, is an avid UFC fan who usually comes to 1 or 2 live events a year. So what I was thinking is I would talk about Joey B on the podcast today, maybe send him a little message. Maybe we get Joe Burrow to sign the other side of the Bengals helmet. And then all of a sudden you're sitting on a helmet that might be worth $25,000, $30,000. I don't know.
Now we're talking.
All right, let's get into some mixed martial arts before I alienate the entire viewership. Pronunciation of the week. Ken Flo and Brian, this is the hardest card that I have been assigned when it comes to pronunciations. So as such, we have no fewer than 4 files to play for you guys today. And we're going to do this quickly. We're going to start with a man who reps Team Alpha male. But he fights out of Kyrgyzstan. He faces Shoot the Box's Elvis Brenner at UFC 301. And I'm just going to spell his name for you very quickly without the graphic. Myktyybek. And the last name is Orolbai. Brian Petrie, of whom am I speaking?
I mean, this is
brutal.
I'm gonna go Mike Beck Orabai. I think it is Orabai.
All right, so Cody has all of the files. Let's listen to Mr. Orolbai's file if we could, Cody.
Is that Mike Beck? Who's Mike Beck?
That's his name, bro.
Yeah.
My name is Muhtbek Orolbai.
Just like it's spelled, Bri. It's really not that hard. Miktabek Orolbai. Miktabek? Is that what it is?
Yeah, Miktabek, Muktabek, Orolbai.
Okay.
All right. So Circle does not get a square there, but you got a couple more chances here, Bri. Some of these are really just public service announcements, but we have a Lithuanian fighter making her UFC debut on the prelims, and her name is Ernesta Karatskaita or something like that. We're going to play you the file. But her last name is spelled, Kenny, Kareckaite. So it's pretty intimidating on paper.
Yeah.
Any idea, Bri? Did you want to give this one a go?
Sure. I mean, I'll give it a try because why not? Ernesta, nailed it, guys. I I want to go Korekikai. I don't know why. That's wrong, but I see the RECK in the middle, and that's where my brain goes. But yeah, Ernesta, I'm gonna stick with. I'm not gonna.
This is just fucking brutal. I mean, because when I'm pre-voicing the stuff for the in arena, like I gotta really commit this name to memory so that I can do it and have it sound naturally. So let's hear the Lithuanian fighter, first name Ernesta, Cody, if we could.
Ernesta Karatskaitė. Ernesta Karatskaitė.
Karatskaitė.
Kenflo, that's perfect. All right. And now we got an old reliable out of Poland. I just like hearing Brian say Karolina and then what is followed. So she did challenge once Joanna Jędrzejczyk for the strawweight title. Karolina, Bri, what do you got?
So it's Karolina Kowalkiewicz.
Yeah, look at this guy, the evolution of Brian Petrie. Let's hear Karolina, if we could.
Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Karolina Kowalkiewicz.
Kiewicz. I'm hearing a Kiewicz.
Yeah, Kowalkiewicz. Now, we also have a file for Jean Silva. John Silva, Jean. Kenflo, this is just for your entertainment, right? Listen to fucking John Silva say his name right quick.
Jean Silva.
Ha!
Jean Silva.
Damn.
Jean.
For the ladies out there.
Right?
Jean Silva.
I check in at the hotel today. They're like, what's your name? I'm like, Jon Anik.
That's great.
And then finally, we have a public service reminder. Alex Perez fought at UFC 300. Michel Pereira fights this weekend. The letter H is not your friend. There are not two R's. So we're going to play Demolidor's file. Michel Pereira, go ahead.
Michel Pereira Demolidor. Michel Pereira Demolidor. Michel
All right, there it is.
Pereira Demolidor.
Demolidor, just saw him, and he looked absolutely massive here in the hotel lobby. But yeah, the R or the D. Pereira or Pereira for Michel this weekend. All right, main event challenge, 301 style. UFC 301, Pantoja versus Erceg. 6 predictions from the fellas, and then we will get to place your bets, and we'll update the standings from UFC Fight Night. Nico Lau versus Perez. Both guys had an outstanding weekend at the window. First pick for us today, Bri, the featured prelim at 145 pounds. Joe Anderson Brito, minus 166. Jack Tank Shore is plus 140. So Brito out of Sao Paulo, Brazil. He's won 4 straight fights. Wood on the other side, 17-1 overall. And he won his UFC featherweight debut last March against Makwan Amirkhani at UFC 286. Pretty long layoff here for Nathaniel Wood, or excuse me, Jack Shore, I should say. I have Nathaniel Wood on the brain, actually, because he is an answer of mine for the UFC 301 weigh-in show, but I don't know why I have his name here. But Jack Shore plus 140, Joe Anderson Brito minus 166. Brian Petrie, who do you love?
Toughest fight for me to pick for sure. Jack Shore, I think, is a phenomenal grappler. He's 17-1, but he got exposed a little bit by Ricky Simone, who's also a big brute of a grappler. Joe Anderson Brito started his career a pretty good grappler. He likes to take people down as well. He's also got tremendously heavy hands, beach muscle for days. And we also, what happened to Jonathan Pierce? Jonathan Pierce is a heavy grappler. He took his fucking neck, right? So Jack Shore rebounded well after the Simone loss, got a submission victory. He's riding high in confidence, but he does have one thing. He needs to get this fight to the ground. Jonathan Brito, 50% takedown defense. He's not like he's avoiding the ground, but Jack Shore has more control than a guy like Jonathan Pierce. So this is really tough for me because in my gambling brain, I remember years ago when Frank Mir fought Bigfoot Silva in Brazil, every underdog won. And I'm kind of leaning towards all the favorites in this card. So Brazil is kind of up in the air for me. I don't know if the Brazil's going to have a clean sweep or not, but I've ultimately landed on Brito. I think he's got more firepower, more weapons. I think he's going to be okay on the ground. I think Jack Shore can win a decision here. It might be tough, but I like Brito. I think he's on a hot streak right now, and I think the power is going to separate these two.
Kenflo, decent chance the winner of this fight ends up with that number 15 ranking at featherweight. Sadiq Youssef right now is number 15. Diego Lopez, number 14. Joe Anderson Brito, minus 166. Jack Shore, plus 140. Kenflo, any lean here?
Yeah, I think it's great breakdown by BP. That's the way I see it, just because of that power. That's going to be the difference. And we can't forget that Jack Shore used to be a 135-pounder. Now, I do think he's in the right weight class now,
Yeah.
but he certainly is not going to have the power of someone like Joe Anderson Brito. Not many do. I mean, everything he does is explosive. He has those heavy hands. He can slam you with one arm. Like the things that he does is just very unusual. And that same kind of length advantage that he typically had at 135 is really gone here. Jack Shore's best bet is to win this fight late, either by coming back for a decision or by stopping him in round 3, because the one knock on Brito, I think, is his inability to maybe pace himself throughout a fight. He goes heavy and hard to start that fight. It's what makes him so dangerous. It's also what makes him a little bit vulnerable. He can get reckless at times. He can expend perhaps too much energy, and him fighting in Rio, the emotions are going to be running high. So I think if Jack Shore can withstand the first 5 to 7 minutes of that fight, he gives himself a much better chance of winning this fight. But I think the firepower might be a little too much. It's why I'm leaning towards Brito as well.
All right, nicely done, gentlemen. We now get to the main card opener on pay-per-view. Caio Borralho, minus 575, taking on Paul Bearju Craig, who's plus 425. Borralho's won 12 in a row. That includes a 5-0 start here in the Octagon. He did compete twice on Season 5 of Dana White's Contender Series before taking his act to the big show, where, of course, it has been all systems go with 5 successive wins. Now he draws Paul Craig. Bearju 9-7-1, Bry, across his 17 UFC appearances thus far. He has never won a fight by decision. All of his wins by finish. What are your thoughts on Craig here against the credentialed Caio Borralho?
I love how you say Paul Craig, because, I got some Scottish fans out there, and I give it a nice little guttural Paul Craig, just a deep, warrior spirit. And I like Paul Craig. He took a trip to Turkey. The boy got some new hair. I saw he dyed it blonde. He's looking good. I like his physique at 185 as well. I wasn't sure how the weight cut was going to affect him, but he looks pretty good. At least he looked good his last time out. Borralho, is that how you say his name? Borralho? Borralho, the fight nerd. He's got the...
That H on the end, we go, yo.
He's got the fight nerd on his neck, right? He acts like he's a dork, but he's not. He's very good. He's very talented. I've heard remarkable things about him when he goes to Vegas and trains. The guy only wants top contenders. He's calling everybody out on Twitter. No one wants to fuck with him. He's good on the feet. He's good on the ground. Sometimes, though, he's a little too inconsistent in finishing people. I think he has a talent there. I don't know if he gets bored. I don't know if he gets distracted, but there's talent there where he could really put on really good performances, and maybe that's why he's not getting these huge fights, is because people maybe forget about a certain performance, whatever, grappling heavy, where he's not really looking for submissions or TKOs. With that being said, he's a huge favorite here. And this is a big no-no in the Captain community. You take a shot on a guy like Paul Craig with this number, with the submissions, with the fact that he just TKO'd Muniz, a Brazilian fighter as well. But I'm going to go with the fight nerd. I'm going to go with the neck tat. The number scares me, but I do think this is a good matchup for him. I think he's going to get him out of there as well.
Kempthal, Paul Craig coming off a loss last November in a main event against Brendan Allen. I would think that Borralho, at least from a betting perspective, would be price prohibitive for some at minus 575, but certainly looks like a force to be reckoned with in the future in this middleweight division. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I think it's a good fight for Borralho. I like him here. He's on a 15-fight unbeaten streak. He's beaten a lot of tough Eastern European fighters that a lot of people want to avoid like the plague. The Muradov, Alexeychuk, Magomedov, Omar Gadzhiev. Like, these are guys that nobody wants to fight. There's not a whole lot in it for them to fight them. So it shows that he's fighting tough guys and performing very well against them and accruing a lot of valuable octagon time in that process. So I like his patience. I think he's smart. I think he's good everywhere. This isn't a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu newcomer, right? He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, trains with a lot of high-level guys. I don't think there's something out there, particularly when they're going position for position, that Paul Craig is going to throw at him that he hasn't seen before. And again, the blueprint's out, the book's out on Paul Craig. You know what to expect. You have to be careful with things like arm locks and triangles. A lot of that is just simply nullified by position. And I think Bohalio is going to be able to do that. But I think where he will probably expose Craig the most is going to be on the feet. Craig has been a little too inconsistent. I think he's still a little slow at this weight class. And I like Bohalio. There's a reason why he's a big favorite there.
Yeah. A lot of our pay-per-view main cards feature matchups that are closer in totality than we have at UFC 301. I will admit to having less enthusiasm for a main event challenge when we start minus 575, minus 650, minus 550. But as we get to our second fight on pay-per-view at middleweight, it's Michel Pereira minus 650. Woo. Now, he was to face Mahmoud Muradov, but he faces Ihor Potieria, who comes back at plus 470. I think the better question is almost like, how good can Michel Pereira be in this division, Brian? I mean, we will take a prediction, but he's won 7 in a row. And we'll see what Ukraine's Ihor Potieria can do here as a huge underdog against Demolador. But what are your thoughts on Pereira in this division and ultimately this week?
Love him in this division. I mean, 2 finishes at 85. I don't know how he made 170. The guy's enormous. But Poteria's got some balls coming to Brazil after the little dance he did knocking Hero. Right. His 3 losses in the UFC are by knockout. Pereira, I think, has speed, power, and he had that at 170. He had the strength, and he's doing it at 185 as well. If he's focused, if he's not going to do 25 fucking backflips to the cage, I think this is an early night. And Johnny, I know you don't have your soundboard. I got one, and I got your voice on as well.
Send him home early.
Send him home early, babe. I think Pereira's going to send him home early. You cut the number down by playing him by knockout. I like him by knockout here. Poteria's got a little bit of a weak chin. He's in Vegas, or was in Vegas for a little bit. He's working on some holes, but still, I see some weakness in there. I see hittability, and I see Pereira just being a monster at 85. I think after this performance, he's going to cut a promo. He's going to do a million backflips. Brazil crowd's going to go nuts. I think we got a real guy at 185 here. I love this fight for him.
I think we need to extend Brian Petrie's contract after the show today, right? He's coming with sound bites, with energy, with great homework, and not to mention the haircut. Your real problem is going to be if you try to grow that lettuce back, because I think it looks outstanding. I really think it brings all your handsomeness to the surface. I'm being serious, you know.
I appreciate
Ken Flo, Michel Pereira minus 650, Ihor Potieria plus 470.
You know, I like the numbers way better when Pereira was at a 585 favorite, minus 585, but I think I still like him here. A dynamic striker, man, very athletically gifted. I do think this is the right weight class for him where he can make the weight consistently. But you look at some of the wins over some really dangerous strikers out there. Chaos Williams, Nico Price, Fialho, Ponzinibbio, Petrosky, I believe, was his last one. This dude is extremely dangerous. 7-fight win streak. I think he gets it done here so long as he doesn't get reckless or get too excited with some of his movements out there. But he's shown that. He has kind of moved away from being athletic, but has retained that creativity as he fights. And there's a reason why he's a big favorite here. I think he gets it done and gets a finish probably within 10 minutes.
And I hope if he does that they give him somebody in that top 12 or so, because at least this mixed martial arts fan wants to know just how good Michel Pereira can be in the UFC.
Dude, Izzy Pereira at some point would be.
Well, right. I mean,
yeah.
Obviously, they didn't set up this matchup with Ihor Potieria as the initial jumping off point, you know, but it does seem as though Michel Pereira shouldn't be fighting guys that he's entrenched as a minus 650 favorite against at this point, having won 7 in a row. All right, featured bout on pay-per-view at 205 pounds. Vitor Petrino, minus 550. Anthony Lionheart-Smith is plus 410. So Petrino, as you guys know, he beats Tyson Pedro back on March 2nd, immediately calls for this fight with Anthony Smith. Smith accepts it, and we'll see what he can do as a plus 410 underdog this weekend as he tries to hand Vitor Petrino his first career loss. Ken Flo, we'll start with you here. Vitor Petrino, 4-0 in the UFC, 11-0 overall, taking on the 56-time MMA veteran Anthony Lionheart-Smith.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is so much experience, and that is going to be tough to beat. However, I think Petrino's fighting him at the right point in his career. I've come around to Petrino, especially after his last fight. I think he's shown a lot more maturity than I think I gave him credit for. I think he's shown some good skills. Obviously, the dude is just built. He is bricked up for sure. And Yeah, I think he's been able to manage that energy very well. I think he's going to be tough to take down. I think that's where Anthony Smith can have the advantage there. If he's able to knock him down, get on top, maybe he can pose some problems for Petrino, but I think it's going to be really difficult to take him down. I think where Anthony Smith needs to be on point is with those long-range strikes, whether it's attacking the body with teeps, either front or rear, utilizing that long jab, trying to keep Petrino on the outside, because Petrino in that boxing range, that's where he's going to be extremely dangerous. And I also think that Petrino could do some serious damage if he takes the fight to the ground and puts Anthony Smith on his back. I think he's good enough to avoid submissions and land some good ground and pound. I like Petrino here.
Nicely done, Ken Flo. And I saw our old friend Cristiano Marcelo in the elevator today. This just makes me feel old. As some of you may know, I hosted the Ultimate Fighters Lone Live season, February, March of 2012. And Cristiano Marcelo was competing on the Ultimate Fighter Live. And 12 years later, he's got a real threat here in Vitor Petrino. On the other side, Brian, we have Anthony Smith. I mentioned 57th pro fight. So he made his UFC debut in Fortaleza against Antonio Braga Neto, June 8th, 2013. Kenny and I called that fight. Then he gets cut, 7-1 between UFC stints, and now overall 12-9 in the UFC across those two separate stints. Still going strong, all the heart in the world, of course, plenty of skills in all areas, but pretty big underdog is Anthony Smith this weekend. Bri, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, you look at Anthony Smith's record, you don't find many records like that. Not just the number of fights, but even before the UFC, all the losses he had, a lot of guys kind of give up. He never gave up on himself, and we're all counting him out, right? And he's kind of got a mouthpiece now, he's kind of like dogging on some fighters, and, he's very confident. Reddit's kind of got their own take on him. And he accepted this challenge against a beast in Petrino, who I am really high on. I hate coming on this show and picking all chalk and picking all 500 favorites, but I kind of got to go with what I think's real. And I think Petrino might be one of the locks of the night. I think he's better everywhere than Anthony Smith. I think Anthony Smith gets exposed on the feet. He does have good long-range weapons, but his legs are vulnerable. His body's vulnerable. He gets hurt a lot to both those spots his entire career. And he's very good off his back. So Petrino, who likes to take the fight to the ground, likes to smother guys, likes to ground and pound, he has to be careful because Anthony Smith does have a really good triangle. He still is active off his back. So if I'm Petrino, I'm working him in the feet, kicking him in the feet, mix things up, maybe look for a second or third round stoppage. But I like Petrino big here. I think he's going to finish Anthony Smith. And that's it.
Yeah, Anthony Smith is one of our most critical analysts. And it is a fine line, but you're really not on television as an MMA analyst to make friends or be super nice. You want to build up the athletes, but I like the fact that he leans into criticism because he's not paid to just be a stuffed shirt and keep everything neutral. He doesn't love when Ken Flo picks against him though on the A&F.484 podcast, but Ken Flo just calls it the way he sees it. All right, co-main event in the bantamweight division. 12th ranked Jonathan Martinez minus 155, Jose Aldo Jr. plus 130. So as 99.9% of you likely now know, the King of Rio is back, and back less than a year after he was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. And he draws a contender, Bri, who's just on an absolute tear. Factory X's Jonathan Martinez has won 6 straight fights, many of them against high-level competition. How do you think he handles this Jose Aldo challenge this weekend?
The King of Rio's back, baby. I can't be more excited. I have grown. I've always appreciated Jose Aldo. He's never like my top guy, but as his career went on and what he did, he became quickly my top emotional savage in there. Love everything about him. I like that he says, I like that he's coming back because even though he was retired in the Hall of Fame, he was boxing. He boxed Jeremy Stevens to a draw. He had a couple other boxes. That's what he's talking about now. He wants to maybe go box more. He's working his hands. Jonathan Martinez is a guy, he's unfortunately on my gambling graveyard. I had a lot of money on him against Davey Grant and he got slept. That killed me. And he has since rattled off all these wins and looked fantastic. But Jonathan Martinez, he throws a lot of kicks, throws a lot of knees. There's not a lot of boxing in him, right? His hands are okay. He's a good striker. I don't think he's going to take Jose down. Marab couldn't take him down. I don't think this Jonathan Martinez is. And Jose is going to come out there and he's going to want to throw hands. He's going to want to box. His body shots are brutal. And Jonathan Martinez is going to want to do the kicking and the kneeing. Problem is Jose Aldo, even though his leg kicks were legendary, he's also really good at checking kicks, right? So this isn't going to be the Cub Swanson. This is going to be the Yanez, or Yayez, excuse me, and that's how you want to pronounce his name. This isn't going to be a fight where you chop Jose down with leg kicks, even though he's been out of MMA for a while in boxing. I think Jose's. It took me a little bit to get here because, again, I want to fade Martinez because he cost me a lot of money, but he's also a fantastic fighter, and I don't want to be a homer picking Jose Aldo. But again, plus money on Jose Aldo in Rio against a guy I think he matches up well with, especially in the stand-up, a guy that's not going to smother him like Merab. Because you look at Jose's fights before the Merab fight. I mean, he knocked Rob Font down a bunch of times. You know, he beat Pedro Munoz. These are high-level guys. And I don't think Jonathan Martinez has fought high-level guys yet on this win streak. He's fought some good guys, some up-and-coming, but not super high level. This is a long way of me saying, give me the King of Rio, baby. Give me Jose Aldo. The money's already been placed. I like Jose Aldo big in this fight.
I hope my producer, Zach Candido, doesn't kill me for peeling back the curtain on the weigh-in show. But, Kenny, I'm hosting the weigh-in show here on Friday, and one of the questions that I have to answer is come up with 3 fighters that you would like to see come out of retirement. And it has nothing to do with you being born in 1976. I mean, you were my first answer that I want to see you come out of retirement because after you fought Jose Aldo, October 8th, 2011, your back sort of cut down your career. And so your last fight in the UFC, Kenny, was Jose Aldo's second UFC fight. And your last fight was for the UFC Featherweight Championship. That being said, Jose Aldo, he's still only 37 years old. He'll be 38 in September. And he was highly competitive and winning fights when he left the octagon. So you are intimately familiar with Jose Aldo Jr. I'm actually thrilled that you get to predict and preview another one of his fights. How do you handicap his chances this weekend as an underdog against Jonathan Martinez?
Well, it's great to see him back, and I think this is a good matchup for him. And Brian touched on this. We have an excellent leg kicker in Martinez going against one of the best leg checkers in UFC history, in my opinion, and Jose Aldo. Everything he does, and I mention this all the time, if you want to learn how to check a calf kick, watch Jose Aldo. Watch how he does it. Everything is footwork, how he turns his hip, the little heel lift to his butt. All that stuff is phenomenal. I've learned a lot just from watching him and, of course, from competing against him. I think he's one of the greats for a reason. And I also think when you're able to compete in another domain like boxing, or say you go and compete in Muay Thai after doing MMA, I think it does something for you mentally. Not only does it sharpen you on a technical level, but I think it also sharpens you on a mental level, especially when you've been wanting to do that for a very long time. You're putting yourself in kind of an uncomfortable or unusual situation, not something that is typical for him as an MMA fighter. And I think we're going to see an even sharper version of him. And again, as I mentioned earlier when we were talking to Ray Longo, Merab did not blow him out of the water. This isn't something where he went out there and just dominated Jose Aldo. This is a fight that took place on the fence. In fact, it really wasn't a very exciting fight. It was Jose Aldo stopping the takedown and Merab kind of throwing a lot of chipping shots that weren't really hurting him. So we all know about Aldo's legendary takedown defense ability. So then we're looking, okay, well, can he pressure him and outstrike him like say, Volkanovski, Max Holloway, Petr Yan? I don't think that's going to be the case here. I think Jose Aldo's experience, his defensive abilities is going to be on a different level. And I think he's going to look very good here. Jose Aldo at plus 130. Yeah, I'll take it.
All right, and we will get official bets from these fellas in about 2 minutes here. Place your bets. We'll also update the standings from UFC Fight Night, Nicolau versus Perez. But let us dive into the main event for the undisputed UFC Flyweight Championship. We do have a live poll question going on right now on YouTube. Who do you think will win the main event? Alexandre Pantoja minus 192 or Steve Erceg plus 160. So here we go, boys. Bri, we'll start with you. Steve Erceg out of Perth, Western Australia, repping Wilkes MMA. He defended his regional Eternal MMA flyweight title as late as February of 2023. Fucking insane. Yeah. 11 months later, 3-0 in the UFC. He competes for the Sports Ultimate Prize and does so against a guy who I would describe as an otherworldly UFC champion right now in Alexandre Pantoja. Brian, knowing how you bet historically, I feel like you're going to see value on Pantoja below minus 200, but the floor is yours.
Yeah.
Who do you have in the main event?
Such an interesting main event because it feels like I've seen this before. We have a guy on the show who had 8 pro fights get a title fight, 3 UFC fights, fight Sean Shirk. Now you're going to sit there and tell me that Kenny Florian wasn't rushed to the title, or Kenny Florian that beat Clay Guida wouldn't beat Sean Shirk? I guarantee you he would. But Kenny said, listen, throw me the title, I'm going to take it. Steve Erceg, same thing. Darren Till, the same thing. He got rushed to Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley hammered him out, right? Steve Erceg, though, remember what I said last time he fought, which was not that long ago. He fucks. This guy fucks, right? He's that good of a fighter. He's a gamer. His stand-up's good. His submissions are good. His fights outside UFC is proven to be really good. But when you look at the records and who's fought who and who's been around the longest, Pantoja hasn't fought in Brazil in 10 years, 11 years, excuse me, since 2013. Yeah. That's insane, right? He's been all over. He's fought in South America before, just never in his home country, Brazil. This guy, you look at him fight, his striking's on point. He's aggressive. He's good on the ground. His wrestling is very good. His cardio is good. When he's slowing down, he gets to the second and third gear. We've seen it before. We've seen clean performances. We've seen fun, wild performances. He also cuts a hell of a promo. This guy's an exciting fighter. I know this main event's getting slept on a little bit. I think Steve Erceg's getting brought up just a little too soon, right? I think Pantoja, you load up on him, you go, well, and Steve Erceg could win this fight for sure. He's got all the skills in the world, but I think Pantoja at this number, you'll load up. I think Steve Erceg will have a career like Kenny where he's going to bounce back. He's going to get better from this. He's going to go out and win 5-6 in a row, start destroying people, and hopefully get his way back to the title. I just don't think it's Steve Erceg's time just now. Give me Pantoja, and I like him big.
You know, Kenny, I have said for Steve Erceg, as long as you don't get completely whitewashed here, I think there's a lot of value in accepting this fight, see the extent to which you are competitive against a guy in Alexandre Pantoja that looks to be just a prime champion right now. So it's happening on relatively short notice for Steve Erceg. It's happening quickly, Kenny. What are your thoughts on the UFC 301 headlining act?
Brian is on fire, man. Listen, I think there's a lot of accurate analogies there. And I do like the fact that Erceg is 5'8". He's going to have that reach advantage over the 5'5" Alexandre Pantoja. And I think he knows how to use it, but experience matters. Pantoja really has put together a very good striking game that allows him to get to a lot of these clinch situations, that also allows him to take the back very well. That's where he can really shine. And he's also very good at keeping that position very well. So, you know, I'm curious to say, I know Erceg is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt as well, but there are levels to the game. Pantoja's been in a lot of high-level fights now. He's got a lot of experience, and he comes from one of the best teams in the world. And although Erceg is on this 11-fight win streak, he hasn't fought the same level of competition. That matters. I don't think it's going to be a question of him being, oh my gosh, I'm fighting in Rio. The lights are so bright. Like, it's not going to be one of those things. It's going to be little technical mistakes. It's going to be actually probably more decisions that he makes during the fight that maybe costs him a round or perhaps even a position that allows Pantoja to maybe finish him. So I think it's going to be a really fun fight while it lasts. I think, you know, there's a lot of potential in Erceg. He might be a champion of the future. Do I think it's right now, though? Probably not. However, wouldn't it be absolutely shocked if Erceg was able to get it done? Yeah. But I just don't think his time is right now. It's a lot to ask. So, yeah, give me Pantoja here, man.
I thought you really set that up well in terms of just how forged a champion Alexandre Pantoja is. The strength of schedule is otherworldly, right? 3 wins over Brandon Moreno, waiting a year for his championship opportunity, and then it finally comes around. All the training camps at American Top Team, his strength and conditioning coach, Everton Oliveira, right? Like, these guys have been at this for so long that I agree, Kenny, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Erceg gets the job done, but could you imagine, and I will admit to being surprised, that you could get Pantoja for -185 or so. All right, let us update the standings if we could. Team Florian led it by about $1,200 going into UFC Fight Night. Brian Petrie was in the red. He's now in the black. He was at -404.25 going in. You go 2-2. Now, you missed for $300 on Ryan Spann, and you had a $200 parlay on Uros Medic and Jonathan Pierce. So that one was a dump as well. But you hit on Alex Perez, +154 straight. And then you also had him by knockout at +400. Out fucking standing. So you had a combined $500 on Alex Perez that paid you $1,262 total for the week, +762 year to date, +357.75.
Nice.
Team Kenflo, another strong week. Kenflo is hitting them straight and far. You were at +755.71. You went 3-1 on the week. That included a nice $100 three-leg parlay on Karini Silva, Udos Medic, and Jonata Deniz. You end up plus 334.77 for the week. Year-to-date for Ken Flo, plus 1090.48. And Kenny's lead, $732.73. Now, some of our viewers want me to give you $2,000 to spend on every pay-per-view. I'm not doing that for 301.
Okay.
Maybe I'll do it for 303. I'll give you like $3,000 or something.
Nice.
So you have $1,000 with which to spend. Brian Petrie, how are you separating your action for UFC 301? In Place Your Bets, brought to you by JonAnik.com, where you can get 20% off your entire order with promo code UFC 301. Brian Petrie, your microphone is almost as hot as your new haircut. How are you spending your $1,000?
Look at that graphic. Let's go.
How about it? How about
I love it? All right, listen, I'm going to get the shitty one out of the way. I'm going to get the one where I'm going to get made fun of out of the way. As a real handicapper, I shouldn't be doing this. Give me the fight near Barallo. Give me Pereira. Give me Petrino. Parlay. It's minus 152. I'm playing it for $200. Give me a quick $150. I need to beat Ken Flo. I think that's a solid win. Give me Jose Aldo for $300 at that plus money tag, and then give me $500 on Pantoja.
All right, $500 on Pantoja straight at minus 192. $300 on Jose Aldo at plus 130, and then a $200 parlay. I mean, that is blackboard chalk, right? The three big favorites on the main card,
don't
right?
talk about it.
Petrino,
I hate it.
Pineda, and Bohalio.
I hate
All
it
right.
so much.
Ken Flo, you got the lead. We need to know how you're spending your $1,000 at UFC 301.
Brian, those are rookie numbers, kid. Those are rookie numbers. Get out the way. Here we go. All right. $200 on Brito.
Nice.
Give me $500 on Aldo. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going big on Aldo.
Okay.
And I want to do a $300 parlay. I liked it a little bit better when we had the numbers earlier on in the week. However, let's go Pereira, Bohalio, Petrino, and Aldo.
Oh, wow.
300.
Whoa.
So adding Aldo in there is going to make that an outstanding payday. See, one thing for me, and I can't bet on MMA, but if I have a straight wager on Jose Aldo, I probably won't include him in my parlay because I don't want to. But Kenny has hit his last three parlays here on the Anakin Florian podcast, so he's certainly not taking his gambling advice from me. Every now and again, he'll call Big Ron Betts, Ronnie Pellegrino, but I know you're not calling me. So, Bri, I love your haircut. I love your energy. If you want more of that, it's the MMA Takes podcast, and you can follow Brian on X, where he is omnipresent on these fight nights at Brian Petrie MMA. Appreciate the extended time, brother. And you got a final note?
Yeah, real quick. Don't know if you guys talked about it. Kenny Florian and his brother Keith, 5th degree black belt. Holy shit. Let's go. That's a massive achievement, brother. That is why you're the best. That's why you're the best, man. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much, Brian. Really
you got it,
appreciate
boys.
that.
Let's go.
Thank you, Brian. You're the man. We'll talk to you next week.
See you, boys.
Ken Flo running out of room for those stripes on the BJJ black belt. Maybe you get a coral belt or a red belt at some point in time. I actually think Ricardo Laborio, if I'm not mistaken, just got his. So
that's awesome. What a legend.
How about that?
Love that guy.
Buy or sell Jon Anik ever gets a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blue belt. I think that's a sell.
Let's go.
Final poll results for the main event. 59% of you like Steve Erceg at plus 160. I'm not sure if that is 59% of you picking him in the fight or just liking the value there. And how about this poll? Better performance. Anik's Brazilian hotel Wi-Fi or his palatial home studio. 64% like the Brazilian hotel Wi-Fi. Unbelievable. All right, we got to get on out of here. Thank you to our guests, Alex Perez, Ray Longo, Brian Petrie. Don't forget, we have another live show for you. Cinco de Mayo, the day after UFC 301. We'll be live on this channel, maybe the Anakin Florian Podcast YouTube channel as well. Sunday, May 5th, live on YouTube, Anakin Florian Podcast, UFC 301 recap, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, immediately following UFC 301. Don't forget KennyFlorianMartialArts.com. Also check out Ken Flo's social to see where he's making his appearances for the seminars this weekend on the West Coast. JonAnik.com. Promo code UFC 301 for all of your merchandise needs. With that, for our executive producer, Cody Merrow, for Ken Flo and the rest, Jon Anik signing off from Rio de Janeiro. We'll see you live on pay-per-view Saturday night. Thanks for joining us live. Yo fucking later.